writing and talking about spoken word poetry from a spiritual lens and from an academic space. We're writing about we show up in academia as we are. You mentioned authenticity.
Yeah.
I would love for us to maybe navigate in that space, because there's something to be said about like showing up as your authentic self on the page and showing up as your authentic self on the stage, regardless of the context. So for me, I'm like, when my stage is going to be this essay that I'm going to write for this particular peer review journal, or if my performance is going to be this thing at an open mic, if anything, as long as I'm showing up authentically myself, that language in that essay needs to also reflect the language that I'm going to use at open mic. Now I might use different words. I'm not going to say epistemology on stage. I might. I think there's some power to that. But if anything, the way that I would explain epistemology would have to be translated in such a way where, again, I'm always thinking about folks who are not within higher education. Not that it's a bad thing or that it's their fault, but like an understanding that, there is an economy of words that are used in academic spaces that are not outside of academia. So for me, I'm like, I would translate, I have actually translated the word epistemology before. When I was working on my dissertation, I had this young rapper help me analyze some of the transcripts I was looking at. And I was explaining to him, I was like, I'm taking this class through my PhD program right now, and all people are talking about is epistemology. I don't know what this is. I was like, they keep saying it's your way of knowing, but it doesn't really make sense. He says, oh, you mean like my common sense? I said, oh, shoot. Yeah, like it's your common sense. He's like, so like how I naturally think, like how I'm like, yes, right. And so for me, that's, I think, what that performance might even look like. How can I make this thing or create the kinds of conditions where you are allowed to think and process vocabulary and to come up with words and language that make sense to you?
Yeah,
that is, I think, a really powerful thing.
Right, right. So how do you then navigate the narrative, the history, the institution of higher education, and hold that intention with your heritage, your identity, how you understand and define success?
Yeah.
And then how do you also manage, I think, as now you're successful, Tom. You've won awards. You know what I'm saying? Like academically and now with your trade press books. So how do you hold that and balance, I guess, the tension and responsibility you feel not just to a community or an audience, but also to your own identity, to yourself, right? To your own ethics and standards to say, yeah, I performed at Harvard, which is dope. It opens doors for me. Yeah, I bring girls into the United Nations. I sure do. At the UN, like this is what we do. But how do I hold that space and say, but that doesn't define success? I don't know. How do you manage?
Yeah, this is so good. I'm so glad we're having this conversation, because I'm like, you know this about me. And I say this, I've always been like 1 foot in the academy, 1 foot out. There's always this, I think I've always sort of been, and that's probably why I'm slightly a bit of a rebel or slightly disruptive, is I've always been someone very, very rooted in community space, like where I come from, right? Like I talk about Washington, D.C. all day. I love my family. I love my community, but also realize that I'm the only one in my family right now with a PhD, right? A few have now gone on, at least got bachelor's degrees, but you also know as a first gen, right? Like trying to navigate that collegiate world and also still trying to stay rooted in the places that...
Because the very place that your community is pushing you to wants you to disown your community.
They do. Yeah. And so for me, what that then looks like is a great example would be, it would look like performing a public dissertation defense. Right. And so for the world to know, I defended my dissertation at Busboys and Poets restaurant in Washington, D.C. before I formally defended in an academic space. But for me, it was important. I was like, I want to make sure that my people get this information first and to get it in a way that it makes sense, that it's palatable. They might not understand every single theory that I've used or complex methodology and all that stuff, but they at least understand like, oh, wait, man, I know that Black boy, he didn't like books when he was a kid. He loves to read books now. He went on and became the first person in his family to go to college. Now he's got a PhD and now he's doing his research and he's sharing this research with the community, right? It's making sure that those lines are not jagged and broken and crooked and dotted to academia. It's sort of like, nah, you don't need to be an academic to understand these high level concepts. My grandmother knows racism.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, like I was thinking about this the other day. I am the shift gears, but I can't help it. This is where my brain is going. You know, I ran one of the voting centers, and I do this for Washington, D.C. I'm with their state board of elections. I run voting sites during election periods. And so I ran one during this most recent election.
Yeah.
And all I kept thinking to myself was like, my mother and my father were both born in 1958. My parents were born without the legal right to vote. I am 1 degree separated from Jim Crow. What? You know what I mean? Like there's sort of this understanding about like who I am, knowledge of self, shout out to hip hop,
Right.
and the communities that I come from and the access that they did not have. And I'm like, nah, I'm like, this history for me is still too new. You know what I mean? So I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah, there's some.
No, but so how do you manage the responsibility? Because that's a heavy burden to bear.
Yeah.
How do you manage the responsibility of expectations?
How do you?
I mean,
It's the question.
that's what I'm asking you, so I can figure out how do you handle that? First gen college student. What? Like I have found myself asking, what do I owe? What more do I owe? What more do I owe? You know?
Well, you say, oh, what's the debt?
Like, well, see, this is it. Is it a spiritual debt? Right? Is it a historic debt? It's complicated.
You know what? I think that perhaps, and shout out to Gloria Latson Billings, who, you know, coined that term, educational debt. And I think so much about the work that you and I do. I think that it's not even, I think it's not even restoring the debt, but I think it's it's adding resources to the pot, if that makes sense. I think it's, you know what I mean? I think this idea that like, at least the educational landscape owes Black, brown, mixed people, intersectional, gender, like it owes us a joyful education, a free education. I think that it owes us that. And I think that the work that we do somehow is reparations. Maybe I don't even think it's reparations, because it's not that we are not the ones, Crystal, who are responsible for the burden and for the debt. It's not us.
But it's recompense. It's restoration.
Restoration might be the right word.
No, is that the healing part? You know? But at my court, Tony K. Bombara asked, do you want to be well? Do you really want to be well? Because most people, they think they do, but they really don't. But what is our burden of responsibility to our community, to our elders, to the future, to my students? You know, I love this example you gave about the voting centers, because I'm like, you know, we have these conversations in class all the time where it's like, they're like, yeah, you know, but voting and, you know, the government now, and what's the point? And they're worried about ICE raids. I mean, it's a legitimate threat, you know, and I'm like, you know, people been being deported for years, but it just looks different now. You know what I'm saying? So I guess for me, I have to make the argument like you are privileged right now, and they don't think of themselves as privileged. But I'm here sitting in a college classroom. That's still a privilege.
It is.
That's still a privilege. It's not necessarily right that it's true.
And I think there's something to be said to your point. I'm thinking now about like at least having an awareness of that privilege, right? Like I think that's a thing that and when we talk about like what burden we bear, I think the burden is that privilege. Now, we haven't earned privilege, right? We earned our degrees, we've earned our spaces, we've earned these things. But then you got folks with the unearned privileges, right? The folks who just sort of like can walk in any academic door, the folks who got family with legacies,
right?
Who going to college was easy, like that sort of thing. And I think so much about like, I think so much of the burden that we bear is trying to make sure that, let's just make sure that the thing that we are studying, what we're doing, that is relevant to me, to my family, to the people we care about. Something what I love so much about your particular work, Crystal, is like it's crystal clear that you care. You know what I mean? I think that's the thing, is I don't necessarily think that academia cares about me.
They don't.
You know what I mean? And academia I don't think it cares about me.
Right. The institution will never love you. You know what I'm saying? And yet here we are working in it. You know, and I think that's my struggle, right? That's
operating in the thing.
Yes, operating in the thing, but not letting the thing operate in you.
Oh, that's it.
That's the part, right? There's a Bible verse. My mom used to quote this to me all the time. She's like, we don't operate by the systems of this world. You're not meant to fit in here. I don't fit in, and I could, whatever, be lonely, And instead of seeking refuge and seeking, it's one thing I think to seek community, but I think it's another to seek my acceptance from an institution that can never love me. And yet here I am trying to transform.
Yep. And academia will love us for it. But right? Because you know, you see, they love us, but they don't love us, right? There's this sort of like,
I love you, but I don't like you.
Yeah, I love your scholarship and what you're producing and this and this. Yeah, but you Black, you queer, I can't figure what you are. Like, you still don't love me, right? And so how do you? So Crystal, you are tenured.
Yeah.
Shout out to being tenured,
Okay.
right? And so you are someone, without a doubt, who moves in this institution slightly differently than someone like me, who's relatively outside, but I do teach and contract stuff like that. But like, so I'm curious.
That's not my choice, to be clear.
This is true by choice, but also by choice, but also because, again, academia does not love me. And the big, and where I live in the Washington, D.C. area, there are very few institutions, at least of higher education, that wants to hire somebody like me, right?
They want you, but they don't really want you.
It's like you
don't want me, you want to be me.
You want
Janet Jackson say, you never wanted me, you wanted to be me.
You wanted to be me. You find me impressive. You are fascinated.
You're attracted
to me, but I'm too scary for you.